You know, I think many people have an unconscious, or even a conscious sometimes, hope or sense or feeling, or that, you know, the mythical awakening or the mythical enlightenment doesn't really involve them having anything to do with it very much. It's almost as if the question is, oh, well, if I ask the right question at a certain point, you know, the question itself, if I get the question right, is magically going to open the door, and suddenly, boom, problem of the human condition solved, just like that. I think, you know, you can see this hope lying, you know, under the surface, under the seeker. And I just don't think that's very useful. The sort of waiting, as if it has nothing to do with us, as if awakening or enlightenment or, you know, liberation doesn't have anything to do with you. And so, you know, and to back this up, you know, there's a kind of covert sort of argument, well, there is no you anyway, so you have to do nothing, and whatever that may mean. As if all activity of the self is somehow negated, just in a sort of an assumption that enlightenment has no self in it, and awakening, there's nobody here, so how can I have anything to do with the journey of seeking it, because it actually has nothing to do with me, and it goes round and round and round in a sort of endless little whirlpool of like not wanting for it to have anything to do with us. And as far as I'm concerned, certainly on this channel and the way that I speak, it has very much to do with us. Very much to do with us. And we're not absolved of devotion, we're not absolved of courage, we're not absolved of willingness. You know, the fire doesn't just do it by itself. Something in us has to activate the fire. We're not just victims here, unless we choose to be. There's a part of us that has the capacity to engage. Let's not call it decision. You call it decision and people's minds start going, oh, there's no decision made in spirituality, you know. It's like another one of those hot words that becomes a meme. You know, it's like free will, or will, just will. You know, or you can't, there's no will in spirituality. So it's like, you know, maybe a different way of seeing it, that it's not a decision as such made by the willful mind, but there is some capacity within us to kind of say, I'm igniting the fire of the you know, the fire that kind of needs to burn in order to burn up the many layers of erroneous thought, the many layers of identified thinking, the many layers of absorbed, inherited, conditioned emotionality. You know, it takes a lot to burn up the victim within us. It takes a lot to burn up the defendedness within us. It really does. And there's nothing, you know, we either have something to do with that in the sense that we acknowledge it. It's not a decision in the sense that, well, I'm going to, you know, write a letter to myself and say, it's time we let go of all this. It's not that kind of puerile decision. It's really deep. You know, this is not funny stuff. You know, this is, what do you really want? If we really, really want change and transformation, we, in a sense, have to throw out the idea of enlightenment, throw out the idea of awakening, throw out all of the ideas of what's going to happen to the future, and be fully committed here and now. Now, commitment is not a decision. Commitment is something that comes from the soul. It comes from deeper. It comes from an undefined place within us. It comes from a mystery. It comes from our depth. Decisions as such, a lot of the time, not always, because it is a decision. Commitment is a decision. Is to say, this is more important than my stories. This is more important than my defensive strategies. And then we don't know what happens. The many layers of self, the many layers and veils of the mind and thought have to be seen. They have to be met. Thought is insidious. Emotion is insidious. The ruts have ground deep into us. They are very deep. They don't just let go because we either decide to or we don't decide to. Otherwise, what are we waiting for? Why are we even seeking? Why are we even questioning who we are and what we believe in? What's the point? If we're not engaged with it, if we're not actually making some kind of commitment to the fire within us. Otherwise, it's just a conversation. Otherwise, we're just having kind of spiritual, psychological conversations. You know, and they tend to keep us safe. And the thing that I've learned in my own journey is that it's not safe. It's not safe in that sense. It's a revolution. It's an inner revolution. And if it's an inner revolution, something has to be overthrown. It's the nature of a revolution. Is something rises up and something old, usually, needs to be overthrown. And we have to have something to do with that. There's a volition. There's a volition within us. I know this for myself. I haven't had the path of some, sudden awakening where everything was erased and everything became easy. I've gone through the path of fire in many ways. Onwards and onwards and onwards without even knowing what I was heading towards. There's no destination. It's an ongoing meeting. And we have to be prepared to have that meeting as the best we can, again and again and again, until that meeting is the path. The meeting is the path. The meeting ourselves, the meeting our shadow, the meeting thought is the path. There is no other path. There's no other path that's kind of going around. You can't take the high road or the low road. It's all the road. High road, low road. You're always going to meet yourself. We're always going to meet the erroneous thoughts. They don't magically disappear. That's the point of what I'm saying. They do not magically just disappear. We're engaged with it. It takes a certain volition. You can call that decision or thought or whatever. I don't care. It doesn't really matter. What matters is our capacity to show up with a certain resilient, courageous, soft, surrendered willingness. Again and again and again. Again. What other choice is there? And then fate takes its course. Do we get a sort of blinding enlightenment at the end of it? Well, I hope so. I pray for you that you do. But otherwise, you're still left with meeting life now and now and now and now in an alive way, not a dead way that carries the weight of the past and the weight of thought and the weight of old, stale, conditioned emotionality. Because that's not alive. That's carrying a bag of dead things around. So there we are.